Hello and welcome to the pond. This is Johnny Pancho coming at you again with a character creation guide video. And now we're not talking about actually creating a character in any particular game, but rather why, who, what, when, where, how of character creation systems in tabletop role-playing games. Now, your first question may be if you are less familiar with tabletop role-playing games, what exactly is included in character creation? Well, for most tabletop role-playing games, character creation is the first step a player will be taking when choosing how they want their character to their characters in their games to be designed by players. Now, for some games, this may include some input by the GM. Many games nowadays favor doing what is called a session zero, where the GM, game master, dungeon master, narrator, whatever your game calls it, will get the players together and actually discuss this at the table as a group. But even still, many games prefer that this not be required. It's not baked into the rules that you have to have a session zero in order to play the game. So, by us as designers putting in a section specifically on character creation, we make it a lot easier on players or prospective GMs who are getting a look at how a character would function at its most basic in a tabletop role-playing game. So, what character creation is can basically be summed up as the least necessary steps in order for a character to be played in the game in your world in the tabletop role-playing game space. Now, let's talk about where this section should be in your game. For the vast majority of games, the answer to this question is simply the front of the book. Not after your lore, not after you explain the newest cool thing you've came up with the mechanics of tabletop role-playing games. The front of the book. Why is that? Well, let's step outside of our shoes as game designers and think from the perspective of a prospective player or a prospective game master. Now, we as designers may be overwhelmingly excited about, oh, this lore I came up with. It's so precious, and how the story could potentially unfold around such and such characters I've designed. Or we may be caring so deeply about, oh, my mechanics. I've designed these new mechanics that are profound and deep and revolutionary to the craft, and people, for the most part, do not care about this first and foremost. First and foremost, they usually care more about being able to see themselves, see a character of their design in your world. They cannot see a character of their design in your world if first you dump all your lore and game design theory on top of them. Therefore, character creation, the thing that facilitates them entering this world, should come first. Now, there is a slight caveat to this, and that is with regard to setting. For some games, it is necessary for the setting to be introduced at least on a small degree, and a lot of times at most on a small degree. Because of its nuance, it may not allow for certain types of design, certain types of characters to exist in the world. In that case, you may want to briefly address the kinds of beings, the kinds of characters that would exist in the space. Outside of that case, character creation should go at the front of your game. Now, let's discuss why character creation matters. Character creation matters because, as we just had discussed, it is the way that people see themselves, see their character, what they want to role play as through your world. Think back to the earliest times that you discovered a video game that let you actually design your own character. Now, most character creation in video games is quite surface level. In fact, for many, including myself, the limited degree of choice in video games compared to tabletop role-playing games was my entryway into the hobby space. But think about, even yet still, how much joy you may have derived from being able to do any kind of customization and really making a character your own. This is what you want to capture in people's minds when it comes to your game. You want them to feel like they have room and breadth and depth that they can dive into with a concept, just a little nugget, a spark, and make something alive from it. This is the heart of many tabletop role-playing games, that agency to make something uniquely your own. Next, let's talk about who this character creation should be designed for. It may seem on surface level like a little bit of a silly question. Well, of course, if I'm making a character creation system, it's designed for the players. But really, there's a bit of a possibility that there's more to the story than that. You see, because for a lot of tables, frankly said, the individual who will be reading the book is not the players, unless you've got a separate player manual, a separate player's handbook. You may want to consider designing the character creation with the person running the game in mind. Now, there's a large discussion in tabletop role-playing games regarding systems that are player-facing versus GM or Game Master facing. There's much favor to making things player facing for the sake of getting players to be more proactive, to feel more agency in their design. However, I'd like to play a little bit of a devil's advocate for a minute and discuss the potential for having the character creation be game master facing. If you make a character creation system that your game master, that the game master of the game, can use to explain in a simple, straightforward oral manner to the players at his or her table how they should make their character, then you may get around a huge block to a lot of difficulty that games have with getting people to just read the game. You would not believe the degree to which people struggle to want to read a tabletop role playing game. But when you think about it, it makes sense to a degree. I mean, think about if you had to, before playing a game of Uno, read a 50-page manual. How many of us would actually play Uno? In fact, most of us learn the game through an oral retelling. That is, someone spoke to us on how the rules of the game work. For many games, that's how it works. If you could capture that feel in a tabletop role-playing game, then this may prove to be a benefit. But nonetheless, writing the rules for a player facing direction is a tried and true method of designing. And so if you make the rules facing the players, or designed to where if a player read it, it would make sense, be careful that the language you use does not dive too deep into mechanics that are not relevant at the time of character creation or in those early stages of the game. And there are some things that may be better saved till a later time. Many role-playing games will do this, approach this, by choosing, instead of putting everything front-loaded at the beginning of the rules, they will make a quick start guide that has, you could say, a snapshot of the rules and the ones that they will need to get started, and then everything else follows after that. This is a good way that you could design the rules to be more player facing. Otherwise, if you go with a GM facing approach to it, then perhaps consider making the rules a little more how to explain this to someone who is interested in playing the game with you, or maybe even including a section on, hey, this is how you would tell someone that they would want to play this game. And that way they will be able to more easily get other individuals to take an interest in the game that they have already taken interest in, because if they're the game master, likely they are already reading the book. Now, let's talk about the process of streamlining the character creation. Have you ever been in a game where you've played the character creator section of the video game for so long that when you get to actually playing the game, you feel like you've used up all your endorphin, all your energy in just making the character? I have definitely been there. I do have regrets. Anyway, when it comes to designing character creation systems, it's important that we make the character creation almost like a appetizer. So we don't want to give them the full scope of the rules and the lore and all that they can do in the character creation. We just want to use that very critical time in the rules that we're writing to hint at potential things that they may be able to do in the future of the game. So instead of outlining very large scopes and paths that you can take in your game to make the epic, most awesome, destructive character possible, try instead to present to them pieces of rules, just the bare minimum that they would need. Perhaps you've already had these outlined in your own design steps. Just give them those bare minimum rules that they would need, but don't make them dry and empty. Use them as a hint, as a suggestion of things that may be possible in the system. Another thing that you can do alongside this is to suggest other parts of the book that they may want to take a look at if something piques their interest. All this would take is just putting in parentheses, see this section of the book. In that very brief way, you may end up linking them to reading other sections of the book. In this way, you make character creation a fun, enjoyable process that also rolls them right into the game, instead of them getting stuck in the character creation and never actually doing anything more with it. Because ultimately, we want people to play the game, unless your game is character creation, in which case, you do what you got to do. Now, let's talk about something very important that's kind of connected to this exact same subject. That's also difficult for a lot of designers, and that is when it's time for character creation to stop. Our hope as designers of the game is that when the character creation process ends, the game will begin. So, with that in mind, we want to make sure that we do not feed the whole game through the character creation process. What does this mean? Well, in straightforward, simple terms, stop the character creation after the players have enough to do the first couple actions. If the player has been given enough tools where they can roll the dice and see what happens, no matter what type of game the GM opens with in your system's scope, then the character creator has done its purpose. Other things perhaps can be set aside for character progression section of your tabletop role-playing game. In this way, you avoid getting into what might be considered a scope creep of systems entering themselves into the tabletop character creator. And this is important, as we had mentioned in the section on streamlining, because if our character creator overstays its welcome, it may make people feel like the rest of the game is going to overstay its welcome, and we don't want people to feel that way about our game, because then it gets the boot out the door. Well, that is all the advice I have here today in the pond. Without further ado, we'll get right into the quick start character creation of my own home game, Khaos 7 Reclamation. Feel free to let me know in the comments how I did with applying the things that I had suggested, and I will catch y'all later. Reclamation Guidebook. Quick start character creation. This quick start is not an in-depth of KSR rules and gameplay mechanics. Rather, it serves as a suggested, guided approach to making a new character in KSR. Concept. Whether it be a character from another universe, a gameplay role, a narrative theme, or something else, a player should go into character creation wanting to play something. This should not be confused with how powerful they want their character to be. Power will come over time. Concept should address what mindset the player wants to open the game playing into. If help is needed deciding on a concept, skim different portions of the setting codex to get a sense of the world of Bara. Origin. A player character's origin will inform much of their starting strengths and weaknesses. On a gameplay mechanics level, origin is made up of 2 genetics, a heritage, and a faction. This will also determine the starting 4 of a character's starting stamina. Another important part of where a character starts is their milestones, which help guide their starting long-term goals. Chaos. Every player may also choose whether or not they want their character born or awoken with a Chaos signature. If so, the character has +1 skill point for their starting chaotic chosen by the player. However, this is always a beta chaotic. Alternatively, the player may have the starting signature randomly rolled. If so, the character has +2 skill points and may start with 2 level 1 chaotics or 1 level 2 chaotic, still always a beta chaotic. To determine the birth chaotic, the player rolls 1d20 for their starting chaos signature. From there, the player may choose their starting chaotic. If a 1 rolls, it's symbiotic. A 2, is grow DNK. A 3 is biotic. A 4 is a space DNK. A 5 is ecliptic. A 6 is time DNK. A 7 is thermic. An 8 is spark DNK. A 9 is dynamic. A 10 is shock DNK. An 11 is amorphic. A 12 is vent DNK. A 13 is harmonic. And a 14 is flow DNK. 15 through 20, reroll the die. If the player rolls a dual nature chaos signature, they may choose between any related beta chaotic. For example, if time DNK is rolled, they may choose between ecliptic, dark step, aura of Canis, time, dark web, thermic, cryogenic, and cauldron. See the useful table of chaotics. Resources. Every level 3 character, the recommended start point for new players, starts with 1 Nightjade, 3000 lifetime score, 7 lifetime points, 30 skill points, and 3000 experience points. A player is awarded 3000 score for making their first ever player character. Your efforts are seen. While 4 lifetime points are pre-assigned based on a character's origin, the other 3 lifetime points may be distributed between Sense, Might, and Heart in any order. When choosing how to distribute your starting skill points, remember that, except with chaotics, each skill is a cumulative cost, accounting for each level. For example, going from level 2 to level 3 on an existing character costs 3 skill points. Starting a character with level 3 in Force would cost 6 skill points. It is recommended that starting experience points be either saved or distributed to TVPs. Experience points may also be spent on maxims, but they are not recommended to start with due to their mechanical depth. A player should be able to smoothly use base gameplay mechanics and tools before diving into maxims. Equipment. Every starting character begins with 5 grade available to distribute between up to 5 pieces of equipment and/or flyer upgrades. If a player chooses to spend their grade on equipment, they should keep in mind that other than the mercy of the Game Master, there is no mechanic provided for changing starting equipment. Mods may still be swapped out. Your choice matters, so think carefully about your character's utility when choosing starting equipment. Reactor or Riches. Every player has a choice between starting their character with a personal flyer of their design or 5 status. If a player chooses a flyer, their character may have to use creative means to deal with challenges that money would readily solve. However, they would be able to spend their free starting 5 grade on upgrading their flyer during character creation. If a player chooses status, they are reliant on paid transportation and allies for travel. However, they may purchase all 8 components necessary for a flyer later in-game. It is recommended, if you choose this route, to save for starting with weapons on your personal flyer. Game time. While in-game, players are recommended to keep encounter assistance readily available. Remember, with the never roll rule, it is up to the player, not the GM, to decide if a challenge is worth in-depth consideration. The dice are in your hands. Welcome to the Reclamation. Thank you very much for joining us here on Johnny Pancho. Stay in the pond if you'd like. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Tell us, what is your favorite approach to character creation? Is there an approach that you're planning on using in your upcoming TTRPG? Let us know down there in the comment section of the pond. And please be kind to others, as this is a new space. We want to encourage as many designers as possible to share their thoughts and their insights as well. And if you would, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time here in the pond. This is Johnny Pancho signing out.